Doug is the Republican-endorsed candidate for Attorney General. His opponent is the infamous Keith Ellison. And Keith Ellison winning handily the Democratic primary battle the other night, despite horrific allegations that are out there against him. And, of course, a very left-wing radical record for sure. So we need Mr. Wardlow to do well. Doug, welcome to the program. How are you?
Doing well. Thanks for having me on.
So tell me, first of all, about you and the pitch you make about you being Attorney General for Minnesota. What do you tell folks about yourself?
Well, it's really important that we have an Attorney General who's going to stand up for the rule of law, enforce all of the laws, and not pick and choose. My background, I'm a constitutional lawyer, and I've spent the last several years fighting for religious freedom and free speech and rights of conscience in cases all over the country. And I want to bring that focus on our most important rights to the Attorney General's office and just stand up for the things that are most important to Minnesotans. This job shouldn't be a political job. We need to take the politics out of the Office of Attorney General and protect our communities, stand by our county attorneys, keep people safe, make sure criminals are being put behind bars, lift regulatory burdens off of businesses. We just need to take the politics out of the office.
So Keith Ellison has some new allegations that are out there. Do you anticipate that's going to play a role in this campaign?
Well, we'll see what happens. There are some very troubling allegations out there. I think it makes it really difficult for Keith Ellison to make the case to Minnesotans that he should be the top law enforcement official in the state.
Do you think Minnesota's media is actually going to, make sure the tough questions are asked there?
Well, I really hope they do. I hope they do their job and they get to the bottom of things and ask the tough questions. We'll see. But I'm hopeful that they will. I don't think these allegations are going away. I think it's important that we learn the truth about these allegations, and I think that there are very troubling allegations. And I know that there's a second woman who's accused Mr. Ellison of some things that are very troubling, and I'm very hopeful that Minnesota media is going to get to the bottom of it and ask those tough questions.
So, this is kind of an odd situation with his, firestorm over these issues. This is obviously a bombshell, comes before the primary. On the other hand, it elevates this race a little bit. Right? It ultimately, I hope, gets a little closer scrutiny from the media and others. Do you agree?
No, I do. I hope that's what happens. I think that is correct. Certainly there's growing national attention on the race. Mr. Ellison is the deputy chair of the Democratic National Committee, and you can just imagine what the situation would be if the deputy chair of the Republican National Committee had allegations against him like these. I think probably we'd be seeing a little bit different treatment. But nonetheless, there's more national attention and focus on the race, and I think we're going to have more media attention on these allegations. But there are so many other reasons that Mr. Ellison should not be the Minnesota's top law enforcement official. You can't get farther left than Keith Ellison. He's too extreme for Minnesota. He doesn't believe in borders. He was seen wearing a T-shirt that says in Spanish, "I don't believe in borders." He recently said that he believes that borders in general create an injustice. So he doesn't believe in the concept of borders. He wants to make Minnesota essentially a sanctuary state. And we can't have a person that doesn't believe in borders as our top law enforcement official. It's that simple.
What do you believe would be the biggest consequence of his being elected? What would change that average everyday Minnesotans would notice right away?
Well, the first thing I think people would notice is that Keith Ellison would use the office, and he said he would do this, actually. He would use the office to wage a political war against the president. He just wants to bring lawsuit after lawsuit against President Trump, and in his words, lead the resistance against the president from the Attorney General's office. And that would be an abuse of the power of the office. It would be a misuse of taxpayer dollars. And we shouldn't have an official who's going to use a very powerful office simply to attack a member of another political party because he doesn't agree with the policies of that party or the president. That would be terrible, and I think people would notice that. And as a result of that, that would mean that the Attorney General's office wouldn't be doing the things that the Attorney General's office is supposed to do, like back up our county attorneys, keep our citizens safe, make sure criminals are behind bars, deal with consumer fraud issues, handle elder abuse, combat human trafficking, deal with the opioid crisis. There are so many things that we need to work on from the Office of the Attorney General, and people would notice that those things wouldn't be done. Instead, Keith Ellison would use the office to wage a political war against the president.
Last question I want to ask, how about you? If you're the Attorney General of Minnesota, knowing obviously that's been in Democratic hands for some time, how is it different? What do you do first?
First thing I do is rebuild the criminal law division. Well, actually, no. The first thing I do would be to take the office out of all of the ridiculous lawsuits against President Trump that Lori Swanson has joined. Those are entirely political and baseless lawsuits, and I don't see any of them. Not a single one of them has real legal merit. They're purely political. So we're going to stop doing political things, and then we're going to rebuild the criminal law division of the office, make sure that our county attorneys have the support they need, and put some real resources toward combating human trafficking and the opioid crisis, working with county attorneys, who are the frontline prosecutors in Minnesota, as well as local and state law enforcement, to have a comprehensive strategy to attack those significant criminal law problems. And then we're going to work on the regulatory angle too, rein in state agencies a little bit, make sure they're not imposing their rules and regulations in a way that is unconstitutional or beyond their statutory authority. The buffer law, which affects farmers, comes to mind, where the state essentially takes strips of land along waterways and says that the farmer cannot use them and cannot plant there. That's essentially taking of private property without providing just compensation, and that's unconstitutional. So there are a lot of things like that I would tackle right away. Welfare fraud as well. We need to prosecute welfare fraud. We have a significant problem with welfare fraud in Minnesota. We have a situation where in the Somali community, daycare centers have defrauded the state and are defrauding the state of up to $100 million a year, if the allegations are true, and it seems that they are. So we need to prosecute welfare fraud, and the Attorney General is the only statewide official that has the authority to prosecute welfare fraud. The Democrats haven't been doing that. So we need to get the House of the Attorney General back in order. So there's a lot to be done.
Boy, that sounds exciting, and hopefully we can have a debate about that, even while obviously the tough questions get asked of Keith Ellison, given his past and his record. But everything you just suggested there makes a whole lot of sense for changes. And this is going to be a fascinating race. It really is, to see, obviously, where things go. Keith Ellison, very well known, obviously, because he is a national figure, as you said, in the Democratic Party. And I would imagine Democrats in Minnesota know him and know him well, especially, obviously, in his district. And you'll have a challenge in that regard. But your ideas are better. So let's just get out there and pound the pavement and look forward to following this race and make sure that the questions get asked that need to be asked. Doug, thanks for the time.
Thank you.